Okay, so we'll get you to stop wherever you're up to and we'll have a conversation about the test. So this time next week, hopefully, okay, that's my plan, but we'll do some study this weekend. We'll have a look at how we go with the lessons on Monday and Tuesday next week. Make sure we're feeling comfortable. Don't want to rush you guys. Make sure we're feeling comfortable. But I think once we have a bit of a chat about the content in the test, you'll probably start to feel, oh, actually it's not too bad. It seems like a lot. It's taken a few weeks, like we've spent, 5 weeks doing it. So flick through the textbook with me as I explain and highlight what's going on here. So I'm going to say 2A, 2B, so the test is on chapter 2 and chapter 3, right? And chapter 2 is specifically about polynomials, and a lot of this chapter, in fact I'm going to say 2A, B, C and 2G, I, J, are Year 11 content, okay? And so I'll make that argument. If you flick over to 2A, all right, so we're at chapter 2, and we just have a look at it, make sure we know operations with polynomials, okay? Here you're literally, look at question 1A, you're just adding polynomials together, okay? In question 1, in question 4, you're multiplying polynomials, okay? So 2A, cheese, all right, let's move on. 2B, finding zeros of polynomials, all right? Stuff that we've done before, finding linear factors, finding all cubics, all right, Year 11 content, move on. 2C, polynomial equality, again, a skill we have done in Year 11 where we're performing expansion of some linear factor multiplied by a known quadratic to find unknowns. All right, so 2C, a skill we have done before, but it does get more complex because they do introduce more variables, and so you do end up with some challenging ones like we have in question 8, 9, 10, and so forth. But still, we love algebra. We're doing Year 12 specialist maths, and so you just follow the algebra and you end up with the answer. So there's some beautiful questions there. All right, so that there is a lot of just Year 11 content, 2A, B, C. 2D, we looked at 2D1, 2D2, and 2D3. This is just division algorithms. So in 2D1 and 2D2, we did the division algorithm. We did linears and quadratics. And then 2D3, we did synthetic division. So we can have a recap of that skill, but from memory, we found it we were pretty happy with it. Then really, so 2D, 2E, and 2F is really where the learning's happening in chapter 2. Because we hadn't seen the remainder theorem before, and we hadn't seen the factor theorem before. And the remainder theorem just says P of K equals A is the remainder, and the factor theorem said if P of K equals 0, then K is a 0. That's what those two theorems say, and we just have applications of them, such as finding unknowns. Most of that content's pretty happy. And on Monday during our lesson, I'll go through, recap these skills in particular for you, stress what we need for the test. Okay, then we keep flicking through, so that's 2D, 2E, 2F, and then we get to 2G, all right, and have a look at 2G. This is where we have conjugate pairs. So that's where we have 3 plus I as a root, then 3 take I as a root. So not much of an extension off of 2C, solve 2D, sorry, finding zeros. We skip H, all right, then we have 2I, and this is Year 11 stuff. Graphing polynomials, finding the equations of graphs, where it touches, where it cuts. Lots of fun, nice and easy to do. So that's 2I1, 2I2, and then polynomial equations, using our calculator to support us to find a 0, and then finding all other zeros using an expansion means. So hopefully chapter 2, feeling okay about that so far? Yep, Seth?
Yeah.
Jack? Yep. Good. Jeffrey, you nodded already, so, yeah. And so did Paul. Thank you for nodding. All right. So then we've got chapter 3, okay? And so chapter 3 is on specifically functions. 3A, composite functions. Again, the skill we learn in Year 11 gets more complex here because we're talking specifically about domain and range of composite functions. But we've got our calculator, we'll use it to help us out. In 3B, we had that enormous exercise of lots of easy questions. Inverse functions, they're lots of fun. We can graph them, okay? If we restrict the domain, we can generate inverse functions on our calculator, and we can solve it using variable interchange. Very good. 3C, we looked at reciprocal functions. There's only a few questions there. Y equals k on x, finding the value of k. 3D, we looked at the reciprocals of other functions. Now that's quite a challenging exercise. especially some of the later parts where you're not given the function, you're just given a graph and asked to draw it. But we can break that down into simpler skills as well. So that might be a challenging part to work on. 3E, we talked about rational functions. So that's where we have one function divided by another function, finding zeros, finding equations of asymptotes, and discussing behavior as it approaches asymptotes. And this did include oblique asymptotes. So asymptotes that are the equation of a line. That was in 3E. And then in 3F, we've just been tackling absolute value functions. Okay, so graphing absolute value functions, using our calculator to help us out, and solving absolute value functions algebraically. So that's the content. Okay, that's what's to expect. Now, if we talk about revision resources, I think the first point of call for us is going to be the review sets. So you've got chapter 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. You'll notice at the back of the notes book here, I've got a series of exam questions. So I've plucked all of these from previous exams, and there's worked solutions for these in the OneDrive folder of polynomials. Okay, so you can look at them and use them. They're a good revision resource for questions to expect in an exam situation and so forth. Okay, so review sets, exam questions, and then we've got the tests. And we need to have a little bit of a chat about what to expect in the test, because there's basically two ways of assessing the functions, polynomials, and complex numbers. So my preference is to combine chapter 2 and chapter 3, polynomials and functions. That's my preference, and that has been done in 2018, 2019, 2022, and 2023. So if you look at those tests, those are the most relevant. They have all the content you need. In the other years, okay, so in 2017, 2020, and 2021, they did a whole test on just chapter 3. So all of those are relevant, the functions test, but the polynomials unit was assessed with complex numbers. So you can access those complex number tests here for 2017, 2020, 2021, and just pick the relevant questions regarding polynomials. And when it comes to doing the complex numbers test, which is the next unit, you can do the complex numbers questions then. Okay, so as far as practice test goes, I'll print for you whatever you want, but definitely that's what we'll start with. These are, all of that is useful, and then here there's certain questions, relevant questions from the complex numbers tests that are going to be useful. Not all of them, but I'll print them and you'll do them at some, or I can do those questions at some point anyway. So they're the practice tests. Now on Monday, that's when our next lesson is. So we'll have Monday, Tuesday revision, and then Thursday we plan on having the test. Here I'm going to do it, I'll go through a few questions. So maybe I'll just call that a tutorial. So I'll probably spend half an hour going through a few skills for you, a few skills I really want to emphasize, okay, in preparation for the test. But the rest of that Monday lesson will be dedicated to revision, and then all of Tuesday's lesson dedicated to revision with the test coming up. As long as we'll have a discussion Tuesday, if we're feeling pretty good, we'll do that test on Thursday. I want to make sure you're feeling ready and feeling comfortable to do it. All right, any questions from you guys? Can you keep me talking?